Good morning, you're watching Addis News Hour. I am Zoe Desaling. Thank you for joining us. Do stay tuned. To begin with, the Council of Ministers during its 17th ordinary session has discussed a draft policy, 2 draft proclamations and a regulation related to various sectors and passed resolutions accordingly. The first draft bill the Council discussed and approved is the draft policy on education and training. It is stated that the current policy has not been amended for the past 28 years, therefore it has hindered efforts to produce entrepreneurial citizens and has gaps in terms of encouraging technological and creative activities. Next, the Council discussed a bill proposed to enact autonomous universities so that higher education institutions can decide independently about their academic activities, become internationally competitive learning, teaching, and research institutions where the society can get its own multifaceted social services. The third issue discussed by the Council was a draft regulation to determine the duties and responsibilities and benefits of academic technical assistants working in higher government education institutions and teaching hospitals, and the rights and obligations of professionals who provide services in laboratories, industries, and research and community service centers in public higher education institutions. The Council thoroughly discussed and approved unanimously the draft proclamation and forwarded it to the House of People's Representatives for approval by adding necessary points to be included in the decree. Ambassadors based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, said that Adwa's generation during that time paid sacrifices for this generation and the generations to come, as well as underscoring this legacy ought to be commemorated colorfully. Congratulating Ethiopians, Russian and Cuban ambassadors to Ethiopia say Adwa victory is a great achievement for Ethiopians for as it is an expression of freedom, honor, and what defines Ethiopians as people. Kasan Jani reports. Take a look.
Considering a forthcoming celebration of the 127th Adwa Victory Day, ABC English has spoken with ambassadors of various nations to Ethiopia, who stated that the Adwa generation at the time made genuine sacrifice for both the current generation and the generations to come. George Lafabre Nicholas, the Cuban ambassador to Ethiopia, highlighted how Ethiopia came to serve as an example for many anti-colonial battles in Africa, noted that Ethiopians are a proud people from a proud nation that has never been colonized.
That moment 200 years ago, Ethiopia faced one of the most modern army in the war at that moment, and they defeat that army because they have the national pride that it's better to die than to live as a slave of another country. And this is the same philosophy that we share, because Cuba is an island. We are dealing with problem with with a big superpower that try to impose their will to us, and we are fighting. So what is distinguished Cubans and Ethiopia is that we always keep fighting for what we believe. I want to congratulate Ethiopia in this. We are very close to the Adwa victory, and also sometimes it's because of the history. We are close also to the victory in the war of Ogaden, Karamara battle, Karamara victory, that Cuba took part in that, so with the Ethiopian soldiers. So we share with you that joy. That joy to celebrate a victory, to be independent, and so my wish is to Ethiopia to achieve what they wanted, to have a big potential, and you deserve better. You deserve better.
Accordingly, Yevgeny Tarakin, the Russian ambassador to Ethiopia, said that the Adwa victory is a great achievement for Ethiopians because it represents freedom, honor, and what Ethiopians are known for as a people. It also marks a turning point in the bilateral relationship between Russia and Ethiopia.
Adwa victory is having a special meaning not only for Ethiopian people, but for the whole African continent. It was like a message of future freedom and future independence. But for Ethio-Russian relations, this victory also has a special meaning. As we all know, a group of Russian medical doctors came here after this victory to treat the wounded Ethiopian patriots who struggled in this battle. And moreover, a group of Russian volunteer officers was in the ranks of the Ethiopian army during the preparation to Adwa victory. So we may say that our Adwa victory is, in certain meaning, a victory to the Russian people as well, and it is, of course, no doubt, a great victory and a great milestone in the development of our bilateral relations.
The history of Adwa's success is intertwined with Earth's people's unbreakable togetherness across racial, religious, and linguistic barriers, as well as Earth's caring diplomacy and unparalleled patriotism in the face of unjust systems.
We are the gateway for all foreign direct investors. Perfectly having the peace will definitely help us and boost the potential of Ethiopia. Even during those conflict time, Ethiopia has a big potential. So majorly, more than $3.4 billion of investment has come last year. Kind of half cabinet will be at the board of Ethiopian Investment Commission. So this shows the commitment of government. So secondly is, the investor needs to know that majorly they have a question of repatriation of their profit. Actually, repatriation of their profit is allowed in our law. It's a very clear one. And the Ethiopian Investment Commission is ready to welcome you, whether you are local or foreign direct investors, to invest in Ethiopia. We believe that it's time to invest in our country. It's time to invest in Ethiopia. We are providing and making sure that we are doing the ease of doing business for the country, and majorly we are implementing the aftercare strategy.
Despite Ethiopia never being fully colonized, Adwa Day is celebrated much like an Independence Day as it commemorates resistance and victory against colonization. The victory helped Ethiopians preserve their history, culture, and language, all of which would have vanished into thin air had the enemy won. Solidifying unity by following the footsteps of our forefathers is a clarion call of the time, according to a seasoned historian. Ayala Bakri, take a look.
Ethiopians fought tooth and nail against the invading forces of fascist Italy, regardless of differences, and defeated the enemy. Adwa became the battleground when gallant Ethiopians refused to surrender their sovereignty to Mussolini's Italy, a latecomer in the colonial project. Also, having had to face a numerically and technologically far more superior army, Ethiopians under the able leadership of Emperor Menelik II chased the Italians out. Talking to ETV, historian Ayala Bakari said Adwa victory helped Ethiopians to preserve their history, culture, and language.
They want to make sure that their independence, their identity, their sense of who they are, their history, their culture, their society mattered a lot to them. So therefore they volunteered to go there and fight. And when they fought as Ethiopians. They fought, that's very important. You might be a gunner, you might be a horseman, you might be a foot soldier, or you might be the one who prepares the food, or the one who took care of the animals. Regardless of the role that you played there, they played that role in a manner that includes everybody.
Turning his attention to polarized views threatening to tear the nation apart, Ayele said the current generation must learn from the heroes of Adwa, who had to put their differences aside in the face of a foreign invasion. He is of the opinion that unity emboldened Ethiopians while facing one of the strongest European armies of the time.
The fact that they chose to be together, they chose to be united, and they chose to be united and fight the enemy that came from outside. And so that's their country. They were defending their country, and we don't have any right to undermine that kind of sacrifice that they've paid. So therefore, we shouldn't tolerate, because division never brought any kind of progress. Division will not bring progress. What brings progress is unity. We know that from history. In any situation, in any part of the world, if you examine those who achieved great things, they achieved it because they got united. They cooperated with one another.
Adwa represents the bravery and the heroism of the people and the unexpected but crucial triumph of Africans over a heavily armed European power. For some, it marked the beginning of a greater anti-colonial struggle in Africa and beyond. Compared to their well-resourced opponent, the victory of Africans against a colonial force became a symbol of black freedom on the continent and globally. Therefore, says Ayele, every Ethiopian should keep the entire historic events of the Battle of Adwa in his heart, as it is one of our identities against oppression that we always talk about, keeping our head high.
Set away the differences for a while and then address the issue of retaining, maintaining the sovereignty of the country. That's what they did. And then as a result, I call them the beautiful ones, because the beautiful ones will always remain beautiful, because they gave us this beautiful country, passed it to us. You see, that's the way we need to see it. And then we have to be really firm and serious about those who try to kind of bring something that doesn't exist in history. That's the history of the Battle of Adwa and its victory.
The historian emphasized that enhancing awareness about Adwa victory and transferred the value of the victory in safeguarding Ethiopia's sovereignty and maintaining unity in diversity to the next generation is the main objective of the celebration come March 1, 2023.
Ethiopia is making all the necessary preparations to mark the 127th victory of Adwa, in which patriots of Ethiopia had decisive victory over Italian fascist invaders. The victory represents all Africans, said a well-known professor of African history, Hakim Adi, who spoke to ETV. In addition, journalist Hermel Aragawi also said that the current generation should make its own Adwa. Johannes Fantone has the following report. Take a look.
Adwa ended the era of subjugation of Africa as a continent and enabled it to use its human and natural resources, and proved that Africans have natural rights of equality and have a higher winning mentality if they stand together. The scholar said that the victory has shown Africans their rightful place on the world stage and is a symbol of freedom that has united Africans together. Hakim Adi, who is known as a professor of African history, said the following about the benefits of Adwa victory for Africans.
No, there's no doubt that the victory of Adwa was very, very important for the African continent and for the African diaspora, because it refuted the idea that Africans were inferior to Europeans, which is a very important an idea, if you like, which was imposed on Africans, in fact, for centuries, that Africans were inferior to Europeans, and therefore that Africans even should be ruled by Europeans. So the victory at Adwa demonstrated that Europeans were not invincible, that Africans could defeat and could be stronger militarily, politically, and so on. But it also demonstrated that the independence of Africa, Africans having sovereignty over their own countries, was possible. So it became a symbol of African freedom.
Journalist Hermela Ragawi, who is known for being a voice for Ethiopia through various demonstrations over the world and with media, said that the current generation should learn from the victory of Adwa and create its own Adwa.
The victory of Adwa was the victory of its time, right? And I appreciate people's love for it, and you know, I'm happy to see Ethiopians take a lot of pride in it. You know, I'm not particularly sentimental about these things because I just think they are, you know, stories in history and something to learn from. But I do think that we need to create our own Adwa in this day and age, but it's not going to look like that Adwa. It doesn't need to be in the Tormeda. I think it's a different kind of decolonization. I think it's going to be done through education and through learning about, just learning, doing a lot of learning and figuring out how to help ourselves so that we can be detached from these systems that are very oppressive. So I think we need to create our own Adwa 2.0.
Professor Hakim added that as the victory of Adwa was a victory achieved by the unity of all Ethiopians, and it is a demonstration that Ethiopia can solve the problems it faces in different times together. It is possible to ensure the unity of the country by respecting the rights of all citizens of Ethiopia.
To unify, I would say, history shows, to unify Ethiopia, you have to acknowledge and accept that there are many different nations within Ethiopia. They have rights. Those rights have to be recognized. If people's rights are recognized, then people can unite. If people's rights are not recognized, people will be feel that they're oppressed or feel that they're not equal, there's inequality, and that will create divisions. So to unite, you have to respect. Just like in any situation, if we're going to unite, we respect each other and we can go forward together.
The victory was named Adwa after Menelik II inflicted a decisive blow against Italian soldiers at the Battle of Adwa, forcing Italy to recognize Ethiopia's national sovereignty on March 1st, 1896. Adwa is a place located in northern Ethiopia.
Mega Projects Construction Office of the Addis Ababa City Administration stated that the construction of the Adwa 0 kilometer project has reached 78% completion stage. Contract Management Directorate Director at the Addis Ababa Mega Projects Construction Office, Engineer David Tababu, disclosed that the project will be fully completed and put into operation in the coming October. The project, which includes multi-purpose units including the Adwa Memorial Museum, an amphitheater, libraries, and youth centers, is expected to be the biggest in its kind in the country. The construction of the Adwa Center is underway at 3.3 hectares of land at the heart of the capital city. As a memorial center of the African victory, Adwa, the center is expected to serve as a platform for reinvigoration of the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
The ambitious, but at the same time mischievous plan from the experience of Wuchale Treaty.
Adwa has never been a contribution of one corner. If someone comes and said, Menelik, you alone, that is a major fatal error. Taitu, you alone, major fatal error. These people or that people, the north or the south alone, no. Ethiopians were one.
Let's talk about the reality of Ethiopians winning such a huge battle and then sending a message to the rest of Africa and to the rest of the world.
It is Adwa that decided the course of history.
Yep.
It is that gave Africa a point of departure. While others fall, Ethiopia rose to the horizon of victory and to decide the black world's fate.
Talking to ETV's Addis Dialogue, Shifarat Alila, CEO of the Ethiopian Electric Utility stressed, and Ethiopian Electric Utility, in collaboration with Ethiopian Electric Power, restored destructed electricity infrastructures in the northern part of the country. Tagusanisa has more on this. Take a look.
Approached by ETV, CEO of Ethiopian Electric Utility, Shifarao Talila, stressed that the magnitude of the destructed electricity infrastructure in the northern part of the country has been pretty high due to the just concluded northern conflict.
The conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia has affected almost all our services in the region, including the electrification projects and the distribution operation and customer service.
Shifarao further indicated that Ethiopian Electric Utility, in collaboration with Ethiopian Electric Power, have been restoring the damaged infrastructure in the north, sending out executive and technical teams right after reached peace settlement.
Following the peace agreement and the government direction to immediately restore basic service in those war-affected areas. EU is almost, you can say, after the National Defense Force, our utility and Ethiopian Electric Power, of course, we were the two utilities. Ethiopian Electric Power is repairing the high voltage, 132 kilovolt and 230 kilovolt and the substations. And we receive the power and distribute through the transmission, sub-transmission and distribution networks. So the two utilities, we have integrated or collaborated our activities. Of course, I can say most of the areas now have the service in most of the areas affected by war is almost restored, I can say.
He further elaborated that as per the peace agreement, once transitional leadership is established in the area, proper service provision will be in place.
The issue is settled and become normal. Now we are expecting there is an agreement. Part of the agreement, peace agreement, is transitional government in the area is required to be established. Following that, we will reinstate our structures there. Because repairing is one thing, operation is another thing. We have to give service to the community, and the proper offices for services and for operation has to be there.
Some beefing up of the regional power integration plan has been undertaken according to the CEO.
But nationally, as Ethiopia, there is integration project already completed and some under planning stage also. For instance, Ethio-Kenya line is already energized, and Ethio-Sudan is already under operation, and Djibouti, Ethiopia is already under operation, and there is also an upgrading, an expansion program under planning stage. So through this, there is a plan to connect the neighboring African countries and other regional areas through these countries.
The African Development Bank Group has officially launched the Borana Water and Sanitation Project worth $14 million the previous day. The project was launched by Abdul B. Kamara, Deputy Director General, East Africa Region, African Development Bank Group. The Deputy Director said the latest partnership shows the bank's unwavering commitment to supporting the government of Ethiopia. And it is to be recalled that African Development Bank Group has approved $13.95 million grant for Borana Resilient Water Development for Improved Livelihoods program last November.